As human beings, we often make mistakes. In fact, ever since God first spoke this universe into existence and placed man upon the earth, man has been making mistakes. Many of these mistakes are ones that are quite serious and have lasting consequences, but others are not so serious. The first mistake that we ever read about in the history of this world was committed by Eve. She obeyed the voice of Satan rather than the voice of God in Genesis 3 and verse 6. Then we read of a mistake that was made by the first son of Adam and Eve, a man by the name of Cain. In John 3 and verse 12 we read this about him, "Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother." Lot's sons-in-laws, they made a very serious mistake when they refused to leave the city of Sodom in Genesis 19 and verse 14. Then, as Lot and his family were fleeing from the city, Lot's wife made a mistake because she disobeyed the commandment of the angel of the Lord, and she looked back upon that city, and she became a pillar of salt. Esau, in a moment of weakness, he made a mistake, and he sold his birthright in Genesis 25 and verse 33. Pharaoh and the Egyptian army, when they followed the children of Israel down into the Red Sea uninvited, they learned very quickly when the waters closed back in upon them what a serious mistake that they had made, for the text says there remained not so much as one of them. Moses made a mistake, and it kept him out of the land of Canaan, when God told him to speak to the rock, but instead he struck the rock. King Saul made a serious mistake when he did not utterly destroy the Amalekites, but spared the king. Saul, as a result of what he had done, was condemned by Samuel in 1 Samuel 15, verses 22 and 23. Uzzah touched the ark in 2 Samuel 6 and verse 7, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. Rehoboam forsook the counsel of the older elders of that nation in 1 Kings 12 and verse 8. The men of Beth-Shemesh looked into the ark of the Lord, and they sinned, 1 Samuel 6 and verse 19, and as a result of this, God smote the people 50,000 and 70 men. Uzziah made a mistake when he offered incense upon the altar of the Lord in 2 Chronicles 26 and verse 21, and Uzziah was a leper from that point until the day of his death. But one of the greatest mistakes ever made was made by King Agrippa in Acts 26 and verse 28, when he said unto the Apostle Paul, "Almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian." Friends, to be almost persuaded is to be almost saved, and to die almost saved is to die eternally lost, and to die eternally lost is to die with no hope of heaven. Friends, today I hope that this lesson will cause us to realize the fact that we do make mistakes. We are human. We do sin and fall short of the glory of God. But what do we do when we make mistakes? Do we pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, repent of those things that we have done wrong, and commit ourselves to preventing those things from reoccurring? Or do we make mistakes and we simply accept those things and we continue to engage in those activities? Well, friends, we must understand that if we want to be pleasing to God, if we want to live the faithful Christian life, then we must always pattern ourselves after the example of the one who never made a mistake. We must remember that Jesus is the only one that has ever lived a perfect life on this earth. He is the one to whom we must turn. He is the one that we must follow. He is the one that will guide us into all truth, that will give us the example of how we are to live this life. Friends, I pray that you will consider the things that we have discussed today, and that you will have a blessed day.